What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show bringing you all the action from the Premier League and Serie A, England and Italy. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you?
Happy New Year to you. Even though we did spend New Year's Eve together, just wish everybody a Happy New Year now that this podcast will be coming out after the New Year. So Happy New Year to the listeners. Good, man. Good. You gotta stop the yawning though. That yawn you did before we started recording, just they're contagious, man. They're very contagious.
I think they did it on Mythbusters. I think they showed that it was contagious. So I'm in. I've always been bad at that. Anytime even someone says the word yawn, like it gets me going. So I will stop.
Really gets people going.
I will stop yawning and talking about yawning. Just
I'm telling you all this talk right now, I'm gonna have one come.
Let's start in Italy, shall we, Dom? We had a little bit of a return, and then we've obviously had some of the Coppa Italia stuff over the last few days. But Genoa and Inter, a draw there kind of opens up an opportunity for Juventus where they get a win against struggling Roma side. Juventus all of a sudden really making this a title race. This feels like we're kind of waiting on Inter to pull away, and they're just not going to. And part of it is because Juventus have just been able to get results. Juventus have had a habit this season of like a lot of 1-0 wins. I don't know how sustainable that is necessarily, but I don't know how sustainable it is for Inter also to just get win after win. You know, they're going to drop points like they did. And a lot of teams have gone to Genoa this season and struggled. They're not one of the first, bigger sides in Italy to go to Genoa and maybe not find all 3 points. So not too surprising in that sense. This time of year, too, you're going to get some weird results just because, there's a lot of games and obviously the weather starts to turn and you're seeing fatigue. I think the biggest thing for Inter right now is Lautaro Martinez has not been the striker that he was early in the season. He was bagging brace after brace early in the season, and it felt like we were going to see a really maybe a historic season from him, honestly. The way that he was scoring goals in August and September. He's cooled off a bit. He has like 2 league goals in his last 8 league games. Like he's not been that level of attacker that you used to. Even some like Marcus Thuram has not had the consistency this season, I would say, to really lead the line. All that said, they're still top of Serie A, but if you're looking for like holes to poke in the argument for Inter this season and maybe get a little concerned about them, is that they don't feel like an elite team. And for that reason, you can expect rough patches. We've seen in years past where teams that aren't, dominant, historic, you can drop, out of 5 games, you can drop 3 of them. That's totally within kind of a normal just bell curve of a season. Is going to throw you some randomness and variance, and it feels like Inter might be a little susceptible to that.
Yeah, a lot of the big teams are always susceptible to some point in their season falling off. I mean, you're seeing it with Milan right now. You're seeing it right now with Inter. Juventus will eventually have that as well. On the topic of Genoa, I mean, they've been. You said it a little bit earlier about them being kind of giant killers. I mean, a 1-0 win against Lazio August 27th, a 2-2 draw against Napoli, a 4-1 win against Roma September 28th. We're talking, leading up to their game against Juventus, which was December 15th. They tied Juventus. Now they tied Inter. I mean, they've shown
supremacy. He's just
listen. I mean, there's something about that team when they play big clubs that just and then they'll drop the ball against all these other teams that are around them in the table. So they're really really are frustrating team to look at, but yeah, I mean Juventus is just staying in there. I mean, even kind of like opening the door, like if Inter seems to have a prolonged struggle, you could see the third place team kind of sneaking their way into contention, but it's a 2-horse race right now in the league, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. Juventus have Salernitana up next and Hellas Verona for Inter, so it seems like both teams should get wins. But you mentioned the variance, and some crazy things can always happen. So
I think you're right when you say it's these two teams. It's very hard for me to see anyone else in Italy catching up to the gap that exists. Like Milan, I just don't think are consistent enough at all to really keep pace with these teams. Maybe they pull within a few points, but I just don't see them getting involved in this title race. So it doesn't feel like it's going to turn into Inter and Juventus. We've talked about Inter and maybe some concerns there. Largely speaking, though, they've still been very good. They've still been a very good team. They've one loss. It's not like this team is bad, but it just feels like maybe we're starting to see this is where the season turns for them a bit. I think you could maybe look at some patterns here and think maybe the next month and a half is going to be very crucial for them and their title hopes. This is also a team that's going to be playing in the knockout stages in the Champions League. Juventus, we talked about the fact that without Europe, that does give them an advantage, and that's something for Inter to consider. Now, Inter also had a Coppa Italia. Juventus play tomorrow, so we don't know, obviously, if they're going to advance just yet. But, that's it. It all kind of balances out in some way, right, in terms of your attention being drawn elsewhere for either of these clubs. For Juventus, Adrien Rabiot gets another goal. He's had another great season for Juventus. Feels like one of these guys that just doesn't get enough love for how good he's been. I think people have really anchored themselves to their opinions of Adrien Rabiot, right? Like, I really feel that he's a very good midfielder, but people have sort of put him in this box of a diva and that he has attitude problems and that he's not even that good either. You're okay with a little bit of attitude problems from Mbappe, right? Because it's Mbappe. You suck it up because he's one of the best players in the world. And so you manage with the fact that he's going to maybe be a diva sometimes about his minutes and about his playtime, all that kind of stuff. But Rabiot quietly, I think, has been one of the better midfielders in Serie A over the last 2 years. He signed a 1-year extension. I don't know where he ends up this summer, if it's back at Juventus, wherever. I think if it's back in Juventus, that's a great decision for both of them. I think if he goes somewhere else, I think someone is probably getting a good deal on him because I do think he's just a very good midfielder, and he's sort of popped up with goals a few times this season and just been, I think, one of Juventus' best players, if not their best player this season and last season. So wanted to give Rabiot a little bit of love.
Bringing it back to the 2-horse race, you mentioned these teams that have, their focus kind of taken away on other things. And you mentioned mainly Inter, because they're obviously still in the Champions League. Milan had a pretty substantial win over Cagliari in the Coppa Italia. They move on to the semifinal. So, they have Europa League as well. And it seems like their focus is more aimed towards those competitions right now because, it seems like the top 2 teams are running away with the league. You know what I mean? Milan's form in the league is not good. And they need something to reinvigorate them, give them confidence and end the season with saying like, hey, at least we won something, right? It may not be the Scudetto, but at least we have a Coppa Italia trophy or a Europa League trophy. European trophy would be wonderful, but we can all hope, maybe our teams both meet.
Oh, I thought European trophies and one of the Champions League don't count to you. I thought
no. I said Conference League.
Conference League still counts, right? Sorry.
But yeah, it's crazy. You've got Napoli all the way down in 8th. And they've obviously still have Champions League. So it looks like, they may be going all in on that. Fiorentina, Bologna, Atalanta, these are just guys that maybe you're trying to make a run in a cup or trying to get into, they have something to play for, obviously, right? They want to get into Europe. They want to get into Champions League, especially a team like Fiorentina and Bologna, their 2-point difference. I can't tell you I've ever seen Bologna in the Champions League. That is something that they may want to shoot for. So there's other areas of the table where teams have to play for. It kind of makes like, oh, who's going to win the league kind of like an afterthought almost.
Well, not I wouldn't say an afterthought, but yeah, there's a lot going on. I think at the top half of the table. By the way, in the Coppa Italia, we have Lazio Roma in the quarterfinals. That's great. I mean, that's always a good time. Although I would say the most recent edition of that matchup was pretty boring and sucked, but it always has at least the potential. Coppa Italia is pretty open. Some of the Inter's crashed out, of course. Napoli's not in it. We'll see what happens between Juventus and Salernitana tomorrow. Frosinone are in the quarterfinals, though. They're going to get the winner of Juventus and Salernitana, but you have Atalanta, Milan, Fiorentina, Bologna. I think any of those teams should feel like they can win the Coppa Italia. It is not a daunting path to get there. We say this though, Juventus is going to end up.
Stop it!
Another Coppa Italia. I mean, what are we doing here? Why are we pretending like that's not a very real possibility? They're the best team remaining in the competition. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that they end up winning it. Speaking of Roma, they almost lost today. Almost lost to Cremonese, and obviously they lose to Juventus, and then they were hit with this. They have a 1.5 million euro transfer limit for the January transfer window.
Jeez.
This is because of their ongoing FFP issues with UEFA and what they've spent and whatever. It's the same reason over the summer that they couldn't buy a lot of players, but this is obviously something to focus on, right? It means that they're going to have to focus on any loan deals or have to sell to buy, right? And it's a tough restriction to have. And this is a team, too, that's dealing with a lot of injuries. Even today in their match, they had a lot of center back problems. Bonucci has been someone linked to Roma, and they've spurned that. But they maybe don't have a choice, honestly. Your options become so limited that maybe someone that you had crossed out now becomes, we kind of need just the backup and the reserve depth. So yeah, that's
mercenary Leo.
That's something to keep an eye on. As we get to we're in the January transfer window now, so obviously you're going to start hearing rumors and things like that. We'll have those covered for you. It doesn't seem like a ton within Serie A right now. Not a ton of deals going on within. It feels like there's a few outgoings. Elmas looks to be leaving Napoli. And then there's a few other players that it seems like could also be leaving Serie A, but maybe not even until the summer. Zielinski, I've seen, is potentially going from Napoli to Inter. Zielinski's amazing.
Yeah, he's incredible. I mean,
great player. But that would not be till the summer.
Yeah.
So we'll keep it locked on some of the January transfer stuff.
Didn't Milan quietly sign some guy from Hellas Verona?
I think they've been linked. Nothing that I've seen yet in terms of official transfers. It's very early in the window, so it's not on. I don't see it yet posted anywhere. Elmas is going to Leipzig. That's already confirmed. And yeah, I'm not seeing anything, any Milan signings just yet. But maybe we'll get there. It seems like everything is just rumors up to this point. You're gonna hear
yesterday Fabrizio Romano said they're advancing in talks to sign Filippo Terracciano.
Okay, he
so that's
also
basically
said that Liverpool were going to sign lots of players too, and that didn't happen. So
yeah, good on Fabrizio, man. Great job.
Yeah. Okay. Good on you. Let's switch to England, shall we? And Dom, I have a question.
Yeah.
How worried should we be about Brentford exactly? They're sitting now perilously close to the relegation zone. It feels like some games have just really gotten away from them. They're currently sitting in 16th, 19 points only. Right now, 4 points above Luton. And Mbuemo's injured. That's been part of this too. Is Rico Henry gets injured, and ever since then too, they've really been on his side. He was a key part of that team. Mbuemo's injured, and even if he was able to return, AFCON would call him away. Ivan Toney is set to return, but there's obviously a lot of rumors about him in a potential transfer. I would have to imagine the price for him was already going to be very steep. when you consider just their place in the table and how valuable he could be, the fact that he could literally be the difference between them being relegated or not. Good luck, Arsenal or Chelsea or whoever is, trying to circle Ivan Toney, who's a very good player, but
he's not going anywhere. He has like quietly placed a bet on himself to score a bunch of goals and keep Brentford from being relegated. So he's going to make sure he does that, collect his money, and in the summer move to a bigger club.
I would love in his first press conference to be like, "I'm not going anywhere. You can bet on that." Just work that, just work that in.
Oh man, I mean, this 5-game losing skid that they have right now is. I mean, like they have certain games where you kind of expect them to lose, like when they play Brighton and when they play Aston Villa, like even the Wolves game. I mean, like that's a tough loss. But the things that stand out to me, like they lost 1-0 to Sheffield, which is a team with 9 points, the bottom of the league. It's one of their 2 wins, and then they lost a 3-1 game to Crystal Palace, who is 2 spots above. They were a point beneath Brentford. So they're now widening the gap, and Brentford now play Nottingham Forest, who has a 1-point lead on them in the table. So if they are to lose that one, they are slowly widening a gap, not in a positive manner for them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking
one
good. League win since November 12th.
That's rough,
and that was against Luton, who have been one of the worst teams in the league, right? Like it's not, you've lost to Sheffield, who have been really the worst team in the Premier League. Like it doesn't feel like it, but it's starting to become a little bit more of a reality that they're getting sucked into this relegation race. And again, once maybe Mbuemo's back healthy and Ivan Toney rejoins the team, maybe this becomes moot. But for the time being, that they are occupying a space that is not great. And if it wasn't for that Everton points deduction too, they would be even lower in their table. They'd be a spot lower. They're sort of clinging on here in a way that is. I would just be a little concerned. That's all about Brentford, and it doesn't feel like it's on people's radar just yet. I think people have a lot of faith in Brentford and Thomas Frank, and that's probably fair. But at a certain point, the table doesn't lie as much as you'd like it to.
Yeah.
And, you're halfway through the season and you're just barely outside the relegation zone. I think it's fair to be a little worried. Speaking of being worried about dropping points, Dom, Arsenal lose 2 straight, lose control of the title race.
Tough.
2 disappointing games, obviously, against West Ham and Fulham. West Ham, it felt like they never really got into that game. And Fulham, it just felt like they ran out of answers in this game. A lot of people have talked about their need potentially for a striker, someone who can really lead the line for them. Some people have said really a winger's in order, that might be something that they need. If they really want to make a push for the title, if they want to make a push for the Champions League, that might be something they have to address. Gabriel Jesus has just not been the goal-scoring threat for them. He's also, struggled with injury at times. And Nketiah has just not been like that guy. He's a very just streaky kind of player, and we know that he was never. To me, he was never meant to be a guy that's playing, 20 Premier League games for you, right? At most he's playing 6 to 10. He's just sort of filling in to rotate, or Jesus is out for a week or two with some kind of injury, and that's his kind of best role. And even that, he's not been, I wouldn't say, amazing at that. So there's some areas to be concerned about, I think, if you're Arsenal, right, in the fact that, again, it felt like when we talked last that they had a good shot at this title, that it felt like, it was in their control, and that it's a skid. I don't think that this is a season-ending, title-ending type of skid for them. I'm not ready to bury them just yet, but I would like to see a strong reaction out of them. They play Liverpool in the FA Cup, which is just great. I hate playing Premier League teams in the first. This is technically the third round of the FA Cup, but the first round that the Premier League teams get to enter. I hate it. It just sucks. It takes all the magic out of the FA Cup for me personally. I love playing some random team from League 3 at their ground too, especially. It's just a lot of fun. But at Crystal Palace in the league, and the Nottingham Forest, who have had a little bit of resurgence under Nuno, and in one sense you can look at those as get right games. In another sense, you can look at them and say, well, they haven't really risen to the occasion last few weeks. And then they have Liverpool early February. The nice boost for them is that's at home, and Mohamed Salah is very likely to not be at that game because of AFCON.
AFCON.
So there's that. So it could turn around for Arsenal. Maybe we're sitting in a few weeks and saying, maybe there was some overreaction to the way that they played, but I do think I would be a little worried if I'm an Arsenal fan right now.
I think it's also that they have a couple notable injuries to some key players. Havertz had to play in the midfield where, you talk about a need for a striker. He could kind of play a center forward somewhat position for them when Thomas Partey comes back, who is in training, but obviously you have AFCON. Zinchenko's hurt as well, so that kind of hurts the dynamic kind of play style that Arteta likes to have with Zinchenko, where he kind of pushes up and kind of acts as like an inverted fullback almost. So it's not looking good for them right now. It's tough, but I don't think that too many alarm bells need to be set off like I'm seeing online. I'm seeing a lot of Arsenal fans, kind of have like the doom and gloom. This is it. We need to fire Arteta, like this and that. Guys, teams go on skids. You're talking about some injuries. You're talking about you're going to lose a couple players to AFCON. I don't know if El Neni is still in with the Egyptian national team, but you'll lose him. They'll lose Thomas Partey.
You're not losing Partey.
No.
Well,
no.
It's not totally clear what it is. If he's currently injured and it doesn't seem like he's going away. There's a lot of speculation about, he's obviously accused of rape. Let's not even he's accused of rape. It's not totally clear if he leaves the country, if he there's speculation about his legal status. I believe who knows? It's all speculation.
Okay. Yeah, no. From what
he has been accused by other people now too. There's a lot I think going on behind the scenes of Partey that has not been, and part of it too is England has different laws about when people can be named. He's still technically not even been named. They just have to do a bunch of very vague things. A Premier League footballer who plays for whoever a London-based team is, whatever. So I don't know.
It's going to be
like they're not going to be hit as hard.
It's going to be tough for Arsenal playing Crystal Palace when Michael Olise has been in form. He had a really good game this past week, so it's going to be tough with a leaky defense playing a team in form. So. You mentioned they have Crystal Palace and then Nottingham Forest. So they have a couple easy games, easier games, air quotes. But that's when I think the alarm bells should be popping off is if they continue this. I mean, they have one win in their last 5. That's when you can start doing it. But, a lot of the stuff I'm seeing right now, I think it's a little premature and take it from a Milan fan. Where the fans are bipolar. You win with a squad rotation against Cagliari in the cup, and oh my God, we're back. And then you'll lose to a relegation side the next week in the league, and it's fire the coach again. So it's back and forth, hot and cold. I mean, teams are going to go on skids. Let these next 2 games be that litmus test and see if they can get something to get some momentum going back.
Yeah, this is how many players teams will be missing, because you also have the Asian Cup going on as well. So Heung-min Son is going to be another big loss for Spurs. Liverpool also going to be missing Endo for that. He's going to be with Japan. Nottingham Forest have 6 players missing. Brentford have 4. Arsenal have 3. Manchester United have 3. Spurs with 3. Liverpool with 2. City have 0 going to either AFCON or the Asian Cup, so that's an advantage for them. I think that obviously the biggest loss is Salah is obviously going to be gone for Liverpool for over a month. And Egypt are a team that they're the most winning AFCON team. They've won it the most times. They haven't won it since 2010, but it's still a very strong team. They lost in the final to Senegal last time we had AFCON, and that was the Mane versus Salah final, and. You expect that Egypt are going to be a team that is in the latter stages of this tournament. So it's a huge loss in that respect. And I think for South Korea, too, if you're looking at Heung-min Son, for Spurs, and he's kind of been a central focus for them, a big, really important attacker, one of the few guys that's put in goals for them this season. You also expect that South Korea to go far in a tournament like that. So, both of these guys, it just sucks. It sucks that their tournaments run this time of year, it's such a crucial part
Mhm.
of the season. But you hope that it obviously doesn't affect them. Last time too, Salah came back from AFCON and was clearly like very fatigued. Egypt played, I think, like 2 or 3 extra times, so he was playing like 120 minutes, 120 minutes, 120 minutes. Like, it's a brutal schedule.
You're sitting there as a fan, just like, oh my
And
god,
it's
like
very
what
hard
the
because
hell? Give him some
want
help.
you want them to do well. I want Salah to win AFCON. That'd be great. I'd love that for him. I would love that if it was in the summer. I would love if every time that he's doing well, it means that he's not with Liverpool for another week. That's really the big thing.
Speaking of Heung-min Son, was it Korean Footballer of the Year? I'm pretty sure.
Kim Min-jae.
Kim Min-jae won it over Heung-min Son. This is like the
Son
first
had a bad year last year.
Yeah,
so
this is
it's
the
not
like
too
the first
surprising.
year that like Heung-min Son did not win it, and like you said, he has a bad season, but I think that just shows the quality of like just South Korean players just across the European leagues. Kim Min-jae just had an incredible season,
He was
absolutely
He
incredible.
was part of a very
So,
dominant Napoli side and was one of the best defenders in Italy and all of Europe, honestly. So totally deserved from him. And yeah, we'll see how that goes up. Liverpool top of the table now. They established themselves. Aston Villa keeping pace as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Liverpool do. Obviously without some of their main star, and then Endo is really filled in the midfield quite nicely. So that's going to be a big question mark, and they're going to have to play Arsenal twice without Salah, most likely. Brighton got their first clean sheet. I just wanted to give them a little shout out, just a little celebration. Their first clean sheet of the Premier League season. De Zerbi was a little coy about this in his press conference because it was a pretty bad game, all things considered. It was West Ham 0, Brighton 0, and said, "Well, now you'll all be happy because we made a clean sheet, and you can get off my back, baby." I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He did say "made a clean sheet," which is one of my favorite because it's very Italian too. Because like fare is like to do, to make. It's like it fills in for a bunch of shit. So I love that has crossed over into his English. It's just like. to keep that going. But I wanted to give Brighton a shout out for that because they have not had a clean sheet in the Premier League this season. They've had a few in Europe, but this is their first time, and it was really not an enjoyable game, which is surprising because Brighton, anytime they played this season, they haven't kept a clean sheet. There's always been goals. There's always been at least some intrigue. So I did want to give them a little bit of love for that. Dom, you said you had a hot take. You texted me earlier today.
yeah.
And then you circled back. It's a lukewarm take, but I would love now. I'm calling this Dom's lukewarm section.
Listen, because
I kept the
I
soup
spoke
on the stove for me. Let me hear.
I spoke to a couple people about it after I texted you, and that's kind of why I doubled back and said it's maybe more lukewarm. But all right, so I was in a conversation on Twitter. They were talking about, this all stems from JD from the Barra Brothers podcast. Shout out to them. He posted a compilation of Carlo Ancelotti as a player. It was like, no wonder, Carlo's never impressed. The guy had it all. Like, he's scoring distance bangers. He can play defense. Like, he gets stuck into a tackle, this and that, right? So I leave a reply saying like it almost makes sense that, and we've talked about this on the show where like, all of these, top center midfielders, whether they're defensive holding midfielders or an attacking midfielder, it just seems like they just translate into great managers, right? And I listed a couple, right? I said Zidane, I said Carlo, Pep, and then I also said Xabi Alonso, right? First off, people said, Pep, top player? What? Pep captained Barcelona to their first Champions League victory. He won 4 in a row, 6 in a decade. What else do you want? So put that out the window. Other people started coming in thinking they got me with a gotcha. And they started saying, oh, yeah, well, what about Lampard, Gerrard, Xavi? Okay, well, if we take a look at all of those, Lampard has the worst win percentage out of all of them. We're not going to talk about him. He's a terrible manager. Gerrard had about, I want to say, a 55 win percentage across, the teams that he coached. Decent, won a Scottish League title, with pretty dominant Rangers side too. Listen, I'm not trying to
no, keep going.
because the Rangers side he coached was actually really,
They
really
were a
good.
good team. They were a good team.
Xavi has about a 65% win percentage across the two teams he's coached. He won a lot of trophies in Qatar, but he coached the best team. So, I mean, that's kind of irrelevant. However, Xavi does have a league title and a Spanish Cup title with Barcelona. He's kind of dealing with a lot of issues with the front office, kind of mortgaging the club, and has a lot of aging superstars with a lot of young talent. It's a very weird mix. So I don't know if it's the right thing to say that he's awful right now. I think it's a lot of recency bias with their position in the league right now. The fact that Girona is like tied with Real Madrid and all this other stuff. I think given the situation, tied for third right now, not bad. This is where I was going to it. Because I said that, I also said that Gerrard and Lampard aren't as top midfielders as you may think they are. In fact, I don't think that they're a top 15 midfielder of all time. Either one of them.
Top 15's tough, but first of all, you're not gonna do this to me. You're not gonna box me into a corner where I have to now defend Steven Gerrard. Like that's fucking crazy.
Can I say some names? Can I say some names? Zidane. I mean, this is
overrated, fat. Biggest game of his career, has a total meltdown like a baby and gets kicked out of it. If not, he's one of the best players ever. If he can just control his emotions for a second, something that both Lampard and Gerrard could do throughout their career. But continue.
Lothar Matthäus.
He's like a good midfielder. I would not say he's better than Lampard Gerrard personally.
Kevin De Bruyne.
That's more interesting. I probably at this stage of his career.
Luka Modric.
I think they're in a similar tier.
Xabi Alonso.
I think Lampard Gerrard are better than Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso is a great midfielder, but I do not think was at necessarily their level. He's a great complementary midfielder. I don't know. Xavi's better.
Iniesta.
Better. I would say Iniesta was better.
Busquets.
No.
Cruz.
I mean, Cruz has an insane career because of the team that he was in. Great player. Here's my question.
Okay.
And this is why I've always defended Gerrard. He was my favorite player. He played for my favorite team. I have insane bias here. Gerrard had to carry teams. When I and I think about this across all sports, especially especially in American sports. It's very common to talk about MVP, right? Most valuable player. What I always like to do as an exercise is if you take that player out of that team and replace it with XYZ player, is that team as good? Is it what the people that surrounded Gerrard were not even close to what was at Chelsea at the time, to players that Zidane got to play with. Zidane was part of the Galacticos. It's a shame that they didn't win more than they did when you consider just how much talent surrounded him. Modric and Cruz, both, again, great players in their own right. Are they elevating a pretty shit Liverpool team, all things considered, to a Champions League win? I don't know. You're
Modric and Cruz?
Modric and Cruz? You're telling me Modric and Cruz are elevating that Liverpool 2005 team to a Champions League win? You're telling me that definitively?
I think Modric, yes.
I'm not sold on that personally. I don't know. I think it's way more gray than you're making it to be. I don't know.
Because
that's something I've always felt.
When you also talk about some of the, you mentioned Zidane, right? He's part of this amazing team, right? There's a couple other names that I didn't say that I had in a list that obviously part of amazing teams, right? If you want to consider Hullet a center mid, but even though he played more center forward, especially when he was winning Champions Leagues with Milan, he was more of a forward. So, you can kind of put him there. I'm
going to say off your list, I would say only 5 or 6 of those I would say are ahead of them. I don't know.
I also have
top 15
I have Vieira on there as well.
No.
Really?
I think Gerrard and Lampard were better than Vieira. Just personally, that's my.
And
personal...
then there's some players that I was doing a little bit of research, a little bit of reading and stuff like this, seeing a bunch of reporters and who they listed as their 11 best or top 10, whatever. Because I didn't get to see these players play either.
Gerrard was the only FIFA Pro World 11 at the time. He was one of the very few that could break into like the top echelon. Did that more than Lampard did too. So he was one of the only ones I was up with Xavi and Iniesta at the time.
Very good point.
UEFA best. So also
Very
I just want to say the players recognized also a great player. That's
his compatriot, Sir Bobby Charlton.
I don't know enough about Sir Bobby Charlton.
And this is what I mean, right?
And it's a completely different era.
Michel Platini, right? Like Rivellino, Zico, right? Like these guys totally, so what I was thinking, I kind of listed,
even if I gave you the guys that were playing with plumbers, I still think we're talking top 15 for Gerrard.
All right, fair enough. What about Lampard?
I've always thought Gerrard was better than Lampard. Again,
so do I.
Insane bias, but that's just. I think Lampard's very good though. Like I think Lampard is like one of the best midfielders I've seen too. Like what he's, especially goal scoring midfielder. Like there are very few midfielders that have been able to have like the attacking positioning that he's had, and
I think that Lampard is a product of the system that he played in Chelsea. It was the golden era of Mourinho. He had players like Ballack to help him out in the midfield. In certain years, guys like Ramirez were there. You had Didier Drogba as your striker.
Overrated, but yeah.
But I mean, you know what I mean? Like John Terry in defense with Ashley Cole and Ivanovic and Petr Cech in net. And I mean, you're talking about a very, really, 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 really good team that he played with. Of course, like he doesn't have a lot of defensive duties to worry about when you've got guys like Ballack and other, Matic at one point. Who else? Like in those
Bosingwa. You're leaving Bosingwa.
Oh my
list, brother.
God! What's even crazier is I have an emote of Bosingwa's face in my Discord. Who else was like a DM at that time at Chelsea? I'm trying to think.
He overlapped a little bit with. No, did he even overlap with Conte? I think maybe like a season with Conte. You had Makalele.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm talking about I'm thinking like 2010, 2011, like when they were just shelling teams like 7-0.
That was like Ramirez and Matic. I think a little later.
So he didn't.
Those were like
really
some
have
of the Oscar years. That's like when you get into Hazard as well.
Yeah. So I mean,
Juan Mata.
Oh my God, streets won't forget. I mean, that guy was a baller. Absolute
Chelsea's
baller.
best player for 2 seasons. It's crazy.
Absolute baller. I think that he was more like obviously like the goal scoring, the type of offensive midfielder he was. That goes without question. But I think that it's a little limited considering some of the other midfielders that we talk about. Right, we talk about a lot of these guys. They're more box to boxy. They can kind of do it all type of guys like your Gerrard, right? Like so Gerrard could defend.
What
Gerrard
was your hot take? Is it was just that
Gerrard and Lampard aren't top 15 midfielders of all time.
Wrong.
Wrongo.
Wrong.
See, so maybe it wasn't a lukewarm take.
You have been stopped.
Listen, talk to us on Twitter, guys. Go hit me up on Twitter. Let's talk about this. My mentions have been going insane on Twitter over what I said about like the managers just at that. Like some people can't read though. Some people can't read. Like somebody mentioned Sir Alex Ferguson. I was like, that guy was nowhere near a top player when he played. Like he had such a short playing career. Manager, one of the best of all time. But my whole point of the tweet was talking about top players in the midfield position turning into good managers. And, like people have a better argument when they talk about, they say Gerrard, they say Lampard, some people try to mention Xavi. Other people mention Arteta. I think that for what it's worth, Arteta actually is a very good manager.
He's a good manager. He's
not top midfielder either.
Fuck out of here. God damn.
That's crazy.
That brother was even on the plane to Spain, brother. I mean, it was a hard time to play for Spain, but god damn. You got to play for your national team at least if you're more than
it's like
top
Sandy
15.
Cazorla got looks over him. Come on now, like
And Sandy Cazorla was a better midfielder, and Sandy Cazorla was a very good player, but
that's what I mean.
Arteta is not no goddamn top 15 midfielder. He wasn't even a top 15 Spanish midfielder while he played, brother. That's crazy.
It's
He was a
so
good
funny.
player. Don't get me wrong. Arteta was a good player, but that's crazy.
Oh, and somebody else brought up Pirlo. So like, hold on. Given the stage that he came in at Juventus, like he still won.
Jury's out on if he's a good manager or not, though. You know.
Yeah, like he won 2 trophies. I mean, given Ronaldo was on his team, right? So like he coached Cristiano Ronaldo, it helped him win some trophies. I looked this up when he was coaching in Turkey. He took over a team that was only ever in the top flight in the Super League for 2 years. They finished 8th both years. He led them in his first season to their best ever finish, which was only one slot better. They were in 7th, but to keep that continuity going was good, right? I think that's for a team that really nobody really knows about too, right? To finish, top 10 in the Super League, given the fact that, you're a newer coach and this team really hasn't been in the top flight except for the 2 previous years to him taking over. I think that's something that's good. Now he's at Sampdoria. They're in 10th. I mean, they were a piss poor team last year, so there's a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done. There's other teams in Serie B last year before Pirlo took over that were better than Sampdoria in the Serie A. So, I mean, like it's tough when they drop down and they're that bad. So it's he's in the top 10. You can only see where he goes from there. So, I mean, it's not as big of a gotcha as it is, but that's another one that came up. But most people were saying, Lampard, Gerrard, they're the frauds.
I mean, I don't even think I don't think it's just like, I think there are a lot of like top managers that also happen to play like midfield, right? And they don't even have to be the best midfielders, but we've talked about like why that might be. I don't even think like if you don't end up being great at it, Wayne Rooney just got fired, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wayne Rooney, a great player, insane longevity, was able to like sort of like phase in and out of like different positions, like very fluid. I would love to see a Wayne Rooney like today, like at 16, what he looked, because he's great player. Hasn't turned out to be like a great manager just yet. And maybe he won't be. I don't know. Gerrard is not a good manager, and Lampard is not a good manager.
No.
So what? It's fine.
Somebody also mentioned that Paul Scholes had a very short 1-game managerial career.
Paul Scholes is nowhere near top 15.
And that's another thing that I said. I said he's nowhere near that. Someone also mentioned Simeone.
I'm not as familiar with his like playing career, if I'm
Neither
being
am
totally honest. A great manager though. I mean, certainly.
And I think that's what he was trying to say. Like, oh, you forgot Simeone. I'm like, I was only naming a couple. You only have so many characters on Twitter. A lot of people didn't like that I included Pep in my list, though. They said that he wasn't.
He was like a pivotal part of like the Barcelona becoming Barcelona today. Like Barcelona's not the Barcelona that Pep gets to take over without him being a very important part of like the original kind of like redemption of.
He
Barcelona
was Busquets before Busquets. Like that was his role.
Maybe he's not like, I wouldn't say that he was like a top 15 midfielder, but he was a very good midfielder.
No, I didn't include him in my top 15 thoughts.
But he was a very good player. You're not playing for Barcelona really at any point in Barcelona's history, for the most part, without being like a pretty good player.
Somebody else brought up Hullet as a different one, like a top player, legend of the game, but not a good manager.
Like I don't really think he.
Well, he managed Barcelona. I know, like that was around the time that I think Ronaldinho was there. No,
that was Rijkaard.
Or sorry, yes, that was Rijkaard. So I'm not sure. Let me do a little bit of research real quick. Hullet manager career. I spelled career wrong. Let's see. What is this? He was a player coach at Chelsea. He was a manager at Newcastle. Feyenoord. I did not know he was the coach of the LA Galaxy for a year. And then Tarek Grozny, and then assistant manager 2016 until 2018 for the Netherlands. Let's see. As a manager at Newcastle, 53 games, 18 wins, 14 draws, 21 losses.
Not
Yikes.
great.
24 wins, 6 draws, 14 losses in 44 games as Feyenoord's manager.
Also not great.
6 wins, 5 draws, 8 losses as LA Galaxy manager. And then Tarek Grozny, which I've never heard of this team. I don't know where they play.
That sounds almost Polish.
Yeah, 3 wins, 3 losses, 3 wins, 3 draws, 7 losses.
It's tough.
Very
It's
tough.
a big man.
Look, what league are they in? What is this? What the Premier Liga? What the hell? This looks like it's Russian. Russian.
Tough.
Yeah. Tough.
Have they been
Yeah,
renamed? Or is it... Yeah.
No,
Yeah, they
I'm
have.
not sure.
It's now they're now Akhmat Grozny,
Ah,
formerly Tarek Grozny, from 1958 to 2017. So there we go.
oh, there's a little useless ball knowledge for you guys. Now Hullet makes his wages as a pundit on ESPN.
Their head coach has one of the most Russian names I've ever heard. Miroslav
God.
Romashchenko.
Oh my goodness.
They're currently 13th in the Russian league.
Yikes.
That's awesome. Krasnodar sitting top of the Russian league.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
Oh man.
Let's look ahead to the FA Cup matches this week, Dom, because we've got Arsenal and Liverpool. That's the big one. But for me, it's kind of defined by, some of the minnows, some of the lower teams playing, and that's why you just love to see a small team like Manchester United going up against the big boys of the competition, Wigan. Wigan, who have had a lot of success in the FA Cup, most famously over Manchester City in the early 2010s. But Wigan versus Manchester United in a little bit of a spiral, as they've been all year. It just feels like they have like a good week followed up by 3 bad weeks, and it feels like we're in the 3 bad weeks right now. So congrats to Wigan on advancing in the FA Cup prematurely. And the first Tyneside derby in 7 years, Sunderland versus Newcastle. Always fun, and it's the first time we've had Newcastle with all their new money playing Sunderland. Newcastle, obviously a lot of injuries, and they haven't been playing very well. They conceded the most XG since XG's been a thing, been recorded. Liverpool had 7 XG against Newcastle in their game. Somehow, I only scored 4 in that. I don't really understand it. But that makes this one a little more interesting. It makes it feel at least like it could, there could be an upset on the cards. For Italy, we've got Sassuolo versus Fiorentina. That's I think always a good one. Bologna versus Genoa. I think some hipster action on that one. Roma versus Atalanta on Sunday. That kind
Big
of
game.
brings up, I think, some of your action and SerieA to look forward to. Anything to say before we get out of here, Dom?
Yeah, let's do another exercise real quick.
Oh God.
All right. I'm going to give you 5 strikers from the Premier League in no particular order, past and present. Okay? I want you to rank them. Okay? First striker, Chicharito.
Number 5.
Oh, okay. All right. Odion Igalo.
Who?
Igalo.
Oh, I'm putting Chicharito above Igalo.
You cannot switch now. You put Chicharito.
You can't
fifth.
tell me.
You cannot change them. Nope.
That's
you are not allowed to
in all
change
fairness,
them.
that's just
You
a
locked
bullshit
in
exercise because you can't
nope.
tell me. All
Nope.
right, then I guess Igalo's at 4. This is
Okay,
stupid.
there you go.
It's a bad exercise, Dom. I had to know the names before I can rank them. I put Chicharito there because I was expecting this to be okay. Continue.
Once you lock them in, they are locked.
You didn't
in.
tell me that at the start. I would just like to say, but
Okay. Josh King.
Number 1.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Anthony,
having fun now? Are you having fun?
Anthony Martial.
Number 7. He's fucking awful.
All right. Last one. Daniel Sturridge.
Number 1. He's clearly the best out of all of them.
Oh man, dude.
And
Come
my
on now.
actual list.
This is...
My actual list. Daniel Sturridge. Martial, Chicharito, Josh King, Igalo. That is my actual list.
Okay.
You can't tell me. You can't be like the first name that is locked into
these as
5.
reels? Have you seen this trend? Like, in no particular order, blindly rank this. Like,
No, that sounds so dumb. That sounds like an
my
awful
God.
way
That's
to
what
do a
makes
ranking.
it funny because people rank them in the wrong spots, and then they're like, "Oh God damn it, I did this." You put fucking Chicharito 5th, and I gave you Igalo, and you're like, "God damn it." The whole thing's out the window.
Igalo sucks. He played like fucking 2 months.
Then I told you Martial, and you were like number 1.
No, I said Josh King. Josh King was my number 1 because he's a king.
I was gonna drop Patrick Cutrone in there, but decided not to do that.
Obviously, number 1. Number 1 in your heart for sure. You fucking loved Patrick Cutrone. You were convinced he was going to save Milan.
I was.
You were ready. You were ready to tattoo that man's name on your body.
I think I was blindly influenced by the boosted Ultimate Team card they gave him as well. That card was incredible.
I think you were just in love. I think you were just in young love with him.
I remember he won a game for Milan at one point, and he celebrated in front of the Curva Sud, and I posted that picture onto Instagram. Yeah. It's still on my Instagram. It's still there.
Maybe one day, dude. Maybe one day he'll get there. Who knows? We've all had a player like that.
I think he scored. He's had 7 goals in 5 games for whatever club he plays for right now. So
that's the most shocking indictment you can give of a player is whatever club he's playing for right now. Like,
oh, FC Pisa. That's what it was. FC Pisa.
I hope they're Serie B at least.
There it is.
Yeah, that looks awesome, dude. The first 5 seconds of you showing your screen is just unmitigated brightness.
Look at what the comment says or the caption. It says, "We're back."
Yeah, you were a few years early, but that's all right.
It was from 2018, so yeah, I'm a little early on that one. We're back.
Rafael was just a stranger to you. We'll be back next time to wrap up the FA Cup action and this week's Serie A action as well. Until then, I hope you enjoy the first start of your new year. Enjoy winter with nothing to look forward to. This is when it sucks, just having the human experience waiting for spring now. It's awesome. See you next time.